And so that's why I love it so much, because it is accessible to anyone at any time. You
Mm-hmm.
don't have to wait for an appointment. You don't have to rely on someone else to help you get there. And so when working with human design, uh, combined with EFT can be a really powerful tool to help you accelerate that deconditioning process. Human design reveals who you are energetically and who you came here to be. I'm Dana, human design specialist.
And I'm Haley, the human design newbie. Listen in as we explore how leaning into your authentic self is your ultimate path to success. Welcome to the Human Design Hive podcast. Let's get into it.
Good morning, Haley. How you doing?
Good morning. They've had quite an adventure so far.
I know. It's been an eventful morning. We experimenting with using a different platform as we record over Zoom, which, ease of use, sure, it's easy, but functionality, I don't like it. Don't like the video quality. But we tried switching over to Zencaster this morning and it wasn't working great for us. So we got some more troubleshooting to do there.
We'll get our IT expert on it
when he wakes up. In the other room, sleeping like a baby. But anyways, so not ironically, what we're going to talk about today could certainly come in handy. Had to use some of it because getting a little frustrated, a little angry,
just a little bit,
a little annoyed. Things aren't working out the way I wanted to. And so we're going to be talking today about tapping, or EFT, which I know you know about because you're my daughter, but we've never really worked with it. Because it's just one of those weird things your mom does, that she goes out and it's like, hey, I'm gonna go on a weekend training. What are you doing? Oh, I'm gonna learn tapping. And they're like, you're gonna learn how to dance?
You're learning tap dance?
No.
Not quite.
No, it's a technique for helping yourself feel better fast. So anyway, so yeah, EFT, emotional freedom technique, is what it's called. Did you know that's what it stood for?
No, I was confusing it with NLP. NLP.
Yeah, NLP is neuro-linguistic programming.
Yes,
which is another way of like working with beliefs and changing beliefs, and has to do with the mind and using, obviously, neuro-linguistic mind
words.
And there's kind of an element of that in EFT in a way, because especially if you're working through using EFT to work through beliefs, which is what we would be doing a lot of it here, there are things in the way that we say things that give us clues as to what we have adopted as beliefs. Like when you say, this always happens, or I should be this, or I can't do that. Like you make these statements about things, which shows a belief, and then going at it from a different angle and reworking it and getting to the heart of the matter of, what the belief is, and then changing how you speak about it. But what's cool about EFT is it gets there faster. So like tapping to me is like the ultimate healing self-help mindset hack tool. And I first really started hearing about it. I can remember when the first time I was really digging into EFT and what it was and what it could do. When you guys were in school, in the virtual learning school environment with Miss Pierce, at First Pres, when Haley and Ian did this 20th century one room school during Haley's middle school years. So that would have been the second year because the first year we were in somebody's house. This was the second year. And I remember you guys were doing lessons or whatever. And I was waiting, I think, and I was researching it on the phone, on my phone. And I was like, this sounds incredible because it was working with veterans and people that have been also experienced a lot of trauma, PTSD, and how they were using this technique, which is non invasive, it's not a pharmaceutical, it's very gentle, very fast, very effective. And it was relieving these people from years of trauma that they had been experiencing that they could then still like carry, they still can carry the memory, but they're not traumatized by it, if that makes sense. So, how does that happen?
It kind of reminds me, when I was up with y'all last, I think we were watching last week tonight when
Mhm.
they were talking about the therapy that they were doing with the psychedelics,
Oh,
with the
yeah.
mushrooms. How
Yeah.
it was kind of like the same thing. Like the people could process the trauma, but like, and they could go back to the memories, but it was like it took away all of the
Mhm.
like the negative feelings and stuff from it.
Yeah. Yeah. Man, I can't wait till they start making that more mainstream because it's so true. Because on a side note, off of EFT, because this is a different modality, what you're talking
Hmm.
about, because
Hmm.
that is helping people get in touch with that part of themselves or something bigger, whatever it is. That's the experience people usually have, is like this connection to something greater. And it's very hard for a lot of people to access that, especially people who are depressed or whatever. It's very hard to access. So yeah, I think it's the plant medicine is way of the future for sure.
Hmm.
As long as big pharma doesn't get in the way. But we're not going to make this a political discussion today. It's going to be
Not
hard.
today.
Not today. So, okay, so EFT. So it's a way to
Yes.
feel better fast, and
Hmm.
you don't need to understand it, study it, master it. You just simply follow along and apply.
Hmm.
This is something
Hmm.
that you can use. Somebody could be like a facilitator for you where they can help lead you through it, but most importantly, is this is something that you can learn for yourself that you can use at any time to, I think where it works really great is in the moment stressors, or especially if you are feeling anxious, anxiety, nervous, like you've got something to do and you've got all those jitters and then you're just
Hmm.
getting all in your head. It helps calm you down. It's a self-soothing technique. And it really is a tool for daily living because you don't need anything special. You
Yeah.
know, you just okay. So basically, what it does, it helps address the body's stress response, the fight or flight response,
Hmm.
to past or present situations. And what's really cool is sometimes when you're using it with present situations, it helps clear up past situations as a benefit. And I love that. So basically, the trauma response in the body when something happens, and it doesn't have to be this big event. It could be anything that kind of knocks you off your center, helps makes you feel like unsteady, unbalanced, something that just like really interrupts your sense of who you are and your safety, anything like
Hmm.
that. It could be very simple as a interaction with a loved one, or it could be something very severe. Either way, this works. And so basically they say that when your body is in this stress response or a traumatic experience, that what happens is the blood flow in the frontal cortex, which is where
Hmm.
you make decisions and everything, is reduced by at least 65%. And so,
So your decision making has less blood.
yes. And
That's good.
so, yeah, so if you think about it, that's why people like freeze or they don't
Freeze.
know what to do when they get in a stress situation, because when this kicks in, it
You
literally
literally
just
can't think as clear.
you can't. And so
Hmm.
what we're working with here is this system that was developed, and it used to be a lot more complex because there's going to be some basic tapping points that we'll go through here,
Hmm.
but it used to be, and I learned all of them because I have trained in this. I mean, you almost feel like you're just doing this long. I mean, it would, I think originally the original points we went through at once, it was um, God, it was like 16 or more points that you would have to tap on to go through. It was like on your hands and on your body, and it was everywhere. And it was like, that's a lot. But then it got distilled down to this more usable, fast, easy to remember flow. And so, anyways, so what it can do is that when you're tapping on these points, the points are basically, they're going to be the top of the head, like right on that little soft spot almost on your head. The eyebrow point, they call it, which is and it could be on either side or both sides. You can use one hand or both hands. It's going to be like the inside of your eyebrow. When I say so, the
Like
inner
right
part of
above
your
your
eye.
inside of your corner of your eye
Yeah,
on
right,
your
like
eyebrow.
right where your eyebrow is, right there, and then you just kind of follow the eyebrow over and around to the outside of your, what's that?
Eye,
Orbital? What is that bone? No, what is that bone?
orbital bone.
Orbital bone. I always get it confused with occipital, which is the back of your head, right?
I don't know, but orbit is
Yeah,
eye.
yeah, outside of the eye, side of the eye, they call it, that little bony point, and you don't have, it's just a light pressure, and then you follow it down under the eye, and then there's right under the nose, right under your bottom lip, the chin. So not your actual like tip of your chin, but right below your lip, that little
Like a
dip.
little dip.
Mm-hmm. And then the collarbone point, which is not actually on your collarbone, it's right below the collarbone. There's that meaty muscle point right there. And then there's also, they call it the side body, which is kind of like if you're a female, which most of you listening, you probably are. It's like right where your bra strap is, or your sports bra strap,
Oh,
Haley.
oh, that high?
Yeah, which you can cross your body over. I mean, you can cross your arm over to do the other side. I
Mhm,
don't always do that point because it
mhm.
just feels more stressful to do that point sometimes, you
Just seems
just,
more awkward. You're like,
yeah. Yeah, and you can, because basically what you're tapping on is we have these, energy. We're always talking about energy. It's like,
what? No,
yeah,
us?
yeah. It's like acupuncture without the needles in a way, because when an acupuncturist uses needles, they're putting it into these specific points, meridian lines in the
Mhm,
body where the energy flows. And it used to be, um, this was all just kind of theory that there was these meridians and this energy flowing through the body, this electrical information, but they've actually, as our technology has evolved, they're able to see that there actually is these currents of energy that are running through the body, these electrical
oh,
impulses. And it's amazing how centuries ago people just knew this
just
stuff and could figure it out. And now science is like, oh, they're right.
we have proven it does in fact exist.
It does
You're
in fact
welcome,
exist.
guys.
Yeah. And so an acupuncturist would, put that needle in. And have you ever had acupuncture?
He once, and it was wild.
I freaking loved it. For a while
It was
there, I
so
was
good.
getting it every week for like 2 years, and I freaking loved it. I mean,
It's
the,
weird, but it
you can
feels
feel
so
the energy
nice.
flow, don't you?
Hmm.
Hmm.
Some of them she'd put in, it was like instantly like you could just feel it, and then I did fall asleep.
Was it with Jenna, the same person I
Hmm.
did? Okay, yeah, I
Yeah,
thought so.
pretty sure I
Yeah.
only went once,
Oh
maybe
man.
twice, but
Yeah, and you can feel, I mean, I know people are afraid of needles, but they're the smallest teeny little
oh, they're so
things.
tiny. They're literally flimsy.
Yeah, they
They're
are.
flimsy.
But what it's doing is basically, it's like just kind of freeing that energy flow through those meridians, because the needle, they're trained acupuncturists to find the exact point where it needs to go. And it's just like it helps the energy flow. So, what we're doing here with tapping is these points that I described to you
Hmm.
are end points for major meridian lines in the body.
Hmm.
So if you were to go look up meridians,
Yeah.
acupuncture points, you would
Hmm.
see these major points. And so what it does when you are stimulating these points by lightly tapping at them, 5 to 7 times as you go through, it is activating that parasympathetic response in the body, the relaxation response, the calming response. And you pair that with uh, it works best if you can speak it out loud, languaging whatever it is that's bothering you, whether it's a memory,
Mhm.
whether it's something that's happening now, whether it's a belief. What it does is that's something that would normally upset you. And as you start tapping on it, it creates the opposite effect in the body. Instead of fight or flight, it's creating that calming response. And because of that, it's like it flips a switch in the brain. It tricks the brain
Mhm.
so that now, whenever you think of that thing, it reduces the emotional response to it, which is why it's called emotional freedom technique.
Yep.
Because it actually releases you from that high emotional response, which then allows you to think more clearly and allows for new thoughts to come in, new beliefs, things like that.
Mhm.
It's really quite beautiful because I did train it several years ago. I don't remember when it was the first time, and did like a level 1 training with a woman, Jondi uh, Wittes, which she's amazing and love her. Having a flashback. She's a goddess of tapping, let me tell you. And so good, so smart. And she works a lot with children with it, and trauma
Mm.
and everything is really great. But it was a lot to take in, and we trained in it. It was great. And then I did it again. I went through it again. So I've been through 2 levels with her. I did it again after um I don't know. It was right before, I think the last time I did was 2018.
Mhm.
God, that seems so, I can't believe when I say 2018, that's like 5 years ago,
I know.
because it seems like not that long ago, but it would have to be because that's crazy. Anyways, as I sat in the training that time, I realized, oh my God, this is the thing that I spent like 15 years at that point of trying to learn how to manage my emotions, my feelings, like the basically what we're doing in human design, we're learning about deconditioning, which is,
Mhm.
changing these beliefs. I did it through meditation and other things, mindset, blah, blah, blah. And that's sorry, I mean, blah, blah, blah. It's blah, blah, blah to me. But that takes dedication from someone in the sense that I realize not everybody's like that. Not
Mhm.
everybody wants to just always be delving into what who they are, why they think the way they do.
Mhm.
It's one of my favorite pastimes, but I know for a lot of people it's not.
Yeah.
And I'm aware of it because not that many people I know were doing it. And I realized that it was that thing, kinda like how Reiki is, when your dad would when I first started training with Reiki,
Mhm.
he thought I was weird about that too. He's like, "What do you mean? You just put your hands on someone and move energy?" I'm
That's
like, "I'm just
okay.
saying."
That's exactly how Pressy feels about it.
Mhm.
He's like, I don't know if you're actually doing anything or if it's just warming because your hands are on me. I was like,
But it feels good, doesn't it? That's what your dad was like. He's like, "I don't know what that is, but it feels really good." And he always felt better after I did it. So it's like, I don't know. What do you think? Does it
I have
matter?
to do it on myself. I have to do it on myself quite a bit.
Yeah, I'm like, "Does it matter if you feel better?"
Does it matter if you believe in it? If it
Mm-mm.
feels good?
Yeah,
No.
exactly. So this is so this was like, okay, this is something that people can do to really shift their beliefs and their mindset around issues that have been bothering them their whole lives. There's work with phobia, there's clearing trauma, and it is so easy to do, and it's fast. I mean, the fact that you could spend, in therapy. Well, I'm not discounting therapy, but because actually the last time I went through this training, there was mainly therapists in the room. They were learning and they
Mm.
themselves were like, wow, this I can get to where I can get my clients to where they need to be faster with this than anything I've ever done, talk therapy, all this other stuff.
Mhm.
And it's so much more gentle. It doesn't, because a lot of talk therapy, from what I understand, I've been in a little bit,
Is that
there's
like talk therapy, like just traditional therapy?
pretty much, yeah.
Okay.
I'm not a
Just
professional, but there's Oh gosh, I can't remember what it is right now, and I apologize to anyone out there listening who does work in this field, but I know that there's this type of therapy where it almost is used to desensitize you to the event by recalling it over and over again. And it's supposed
Mm,
to be like the more you're exposed to it, you're desensitized to it, and it's supposed to help.
mhm.
But in the meantime, it can be very, very traumatizing to the person,
Yeah.
very unsettling, and there is a purpose to it to try to help, but it can this if they use tapping with it, it can just bring that down so fast. And so that's why I love it so much, because it is accessible to anyone at any time. You
Mhm.
don't have to wait for an appointment. You don't have to rely on someone else to help you get there. And so when working with human design, uh, combined with EFT, can be a really powerful tool to help you accelerate that deconditioning process. Now, I know we did a deconditioning episode, and we
Mhm.
talked about how, Ra had said that it takes 7 years to decondition, right? And we
Mhm.
had that discussion that I don't believe that
Right.
anymore. And this is one reason for it is EFT, because if the whole point in deconditioning is to change the way that you think or
Mhm.
react, because, when we're looking at the open centers in particular, when it comes to conditioning, that's where you're taking on those not self behaviors, because you are receiving other people's energy and beliefs,
Mhm.
and they feel more real to you because they are amplified. And that's how we take on these identities that aren't necessarily us. What
Right.
is us, quote unquote, us, is the divine centers or divine gates, divine energies in your chart.
Mhm.
This is where
Sorry.
Zencaster would come in really handy, because I could be able to edit your video to where everybody didn't have to hear you hiccuping.
We're just being real.
You good?
Yes, I think it was
Okay.
just a one or two.
Okay.
Okay.
Just a minor hiccup.
Well, sometimes I'm gonna just get one hiccup.
Mhm. Okay. So these undefined areas are the areas where we start building these beliefs that aren't necessarily ours. And as I said, before human design and before tapping, it took a lot of inner work, slow process, deconstructing beliefs, trying to construct new ones. Because also in yoga, they talk a lot about the samskaras, which are these, what they described as these pathways in the brain, which
Mhm.
is basically like a belief system. It's that where you have these imprints in your thinking, in your
Mhm.
mind about events, things like that. They call them samskaras. And part of the process in yoga and meditation is rewriting those, basically. And this is what we're gonna do with
Mm.
EFT.
Mm.
Okay. So before I try to throw too much at everybody at once, let's just talk about the basic recipe process for using EFT. Okay? Sound good? Yes.
Yeah. Yep.
So there's basically the ABCs. So we're actually going to give you that kind of acronym thing. So the A,
Love an
okay?
acronym.
Yeah. A is for awareness, okay?
Awareness.
So in the moment, the awareness, what
Mhm.
is bothering you as you, because I mean, I think you can usually feel when you're getting off kilter or something is bothering you, okay?
Mhm.
And you can ask yourself, what is it that's bothering you? Is it tension? Is it pain? Is it a memory? Even cravings, things like that. I think that when I most am likely to remember to do tapping is when I find myself spiraling. My mind
Mhm.
is like racing, really great in the middle of the night to help get you back to sleep sometimes, quite often. And so having this awareness of, like, instead of just spiraling and just going with the thoughts that are like really getting out of control,
Mhm.
recognizing, okay, what is happening right now? I'm I'm really anxious. I'm really angry. I'm really frustrated, whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Which, also when I just realized some of those words I used are not self behaviors of the types. I'm really bitter. You know, if you start feeling yourself in these not self behaviors, you can start, okay, so what is this about? You know,
Mm-hmm.
what is it I need to look at or what am I feeling? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So once you start to have that awareness, okay, I am feeling like really, let's say, angry right now. Um, why is that? What is it that's bothering you? You say, well, it's because my husband said that thing to me earlier and it really pissed me off, right? I'm not saying your husband, any husband, mate, whatever you want to call it. I'm going to use the word husband. Insert your own.
Well, that's just because that's your greatest reference.
Oh, okay. All right. So
I don't.
basically, what is the intensity of this feeling in the moment? Okay. You would ask yourself that question on, 0 to 10 scale. That's the most common scale. 0 to 10. If you want a different kind of scale, make your own up. It doesn't matter. You know what feels intense and what
Like
doesn't.
how they have in the hospital the little pains, smiley
Right.
faces. They're like, "Are you frowny or are you smiley?
Are you like half frowning? Are you straight lined face? I like the straight line face. Like, I'm
Are
indifferent.
you upside down face?" That's my favorite emoji.
It's like, I don't know what the hell's going on. Anyways, so you give it a rating 0 to 10.
Hmm.
Okay, so that's the
Okay.
first thing. Awareness of the problem. What is the problem that you're experiencing in the moment to the best of your
Hmm.
knowledge? What it is, the feeling, the sensation, the experience, memory, whatever it is.
Hmm.
Give
Hmm.
it a intensity rating. Okay. And then you start with the balancing part of the technique. And this is
Is this B?
now, this is B for
Okay.
balancing.
B
Now,
for balancing.
there are some people that don't use this part at all, but the way I was trained, it's a good if you're really trying to specify and really get into a specific situation, specific problem, because the best way to use EFT is one thing at a time.
Mhm.
Because trust me, you can spiral sometimes if just more things coming up. So it's usually good to clear one thing at a time. So
That's usually the approach I like to take in life too.
yeah, yeah. So you would start off, so what they call the side of the hand. So if you are looking along the pinky goes down to where your hand is, the side of your hand. They
The
used to
meaty
use
side.
the meaty side, yeah, which they used to call it something. Now they say it's not appropriate to say karate chop point because that is kind
Oh.
of, yeah. So they stopped using that, and that's fine. So it's the side of your hand, the media. So you just lightly tap there, and as you tap there, because this
Do
kind of
you do
helps.
do you typically do like one finger, two finger, just kind of like
I
whatever
do. I
feels
realize that
natural?
I pretty much use 3 fingers. You can
Mm.
use two. I would suggest at least using two, but I don't know. It just kind of works out to be 3 fingers
Two
throughout the
two
whole.
feels
That's fine.
two feels natural for
Because all
me.
you're doing is you're lightly stimulating the point. And so you just start tapping on the side of your hand with your fingertips from your other hand. And you just have like a setup statement, they call it. And the setup statement would go something like this. So let's say you had a fight, your husband or whatever, he said something. So you say, like, even though I'm like really pissed off that he said XYZ to me, I deeply and completely love and accept myself. Or you can say, I accept myself and how I feel. Because I understand some people don't want to say, especially when it's getting into tricky beliefs. Sometimes it can be hard to say
Mhm.
these things. You can say, even though I have this problem, it makes me feel like this. Maybe if you want to expound on it, this is very much how you want to do it, how it makes you feel. You're just kind of identifying the problem and then setting up the statement of, I love and accept myself, or I accept myself and how I feel, or
Mhm.
that's just the way it is. That's where I'm at right now, and that's okay. It's literally saying it's okay to have this feeling. I have this feeling. It's okay that I have this feeling. It doesn't affect me. It's not who I am. It's like this is
Mhm.
a feeling. And
This
so
is a
you can,
state.
it's a state. And so I accept yourself is basically what you're working on. And this is the setup statement. And you can say
Okay.
that a couple times, 3 times. You can say it exactly the same each time. You can play around with it, whatever. And then you'll do the clearing. So awareness, balancing, side of the hand. And then
Mhm.
we do the clearing, which is when we go through the tapping points. Now, I find
I have a
that,
question.
yes, ma'am.
So, like, the basis of the setup statement is the basis is basically just saying that it's to get in the mindset or the state of saying, I accept this, I love myself, this is
Hmm.
okay. Just kind of
Hmm.
get into there, and then you do the
Yeah, it's
other stuff.
getting you focused in one direction, but also this tapping on the side of the hand is an overall like relaxation. So it's almost like getting you at a point where you can even address the situation because in circumstances where it is a highly emotionally charged, say it's like a memory or it's something in the moment that's like really
Mhm.
got you going, it can be hard to not hard, but it can be more difficult to get into the tapping points because the intensity is too high. Because, like I said, there's especially if you're working with someone, there is this component to the tapping, the speaking out loud. Because some people are like, well, do I have to speak it out loud? You don't have to. Like if you're in a crowded environment and something is
Mhm.
happening and you're really stressed, you're at school, you're at work or whatever, no, you don't have to start speaking out loud what your issues are because that's not going to help.
Some
But
people are showed staring.
yeah, yeah. But when you are intentionally trying to release this emotion or work through something, it is good to speak it out loud because you'll notice that when you say things in your head, it has a different effect than when you speak the words out loud. Because you
Mhm.
might in your head, while you're thinking it, there's also this other part of your mind that is like, oh, it's not that bad. Oh, it's okay. Or because that's your coping
Mhm.
mechanism that's always been there that keeps it at bay. Because I mean, how often has somebody or you or yourself, you might be like, "Oh, I'm a little upset about something," but then when you try to speak it, you can't even get the words out because the emotion comes so fast.
Mhm.
That is what we're dealing with here, and so if you sometimes if you just tried to start talking about it and tapping, it's like you won't even the intensity can be too much. So this set point here, this setting it up, this setup statement not only helps
Mhm.
focus it, but if it's a really emotionally charged thing that has you really upset, it takes the edge off. And this is the gentle part of it that it's and because if I were working with someone and I could see they were really upset about something, I would just generally this is what I did. I told you Lakeland came in yesterday. She was upset about something. And I just said, okay, I just had her tap on the side of her hand while she told me what the
Mhm.
problem that she perceived it to be, which was a lot of it was a lot of things all at once. But as
Mhm.
she tapped, she could slow it down. The intensity got a little bit more. It was easier for me to talk with her and focus with her so that she could really um, say what she
Get
was
to the meat of
thinking.
it.
But then also, I was able to then use some of her words back to her to see if this was really what the problem was. And then we were able to start tapping. So but this is really the setup statement. So you know what you're working with, you know what's
Mhm.
bothering you. And if it's got you really upset, it can help. I mean, you can literally start to feel yourself calm a little bit.
Just kind
So,
of gets you down a little couple pegs, so you're in a more
yeah.
stable state.
And I will say that even though, especially I think in the sense of anxiety, things like that,
Mhm.
it can feel very emotional at first. And there will even be sometimes this release of emotion, but I'll tell you, it flips so quick. So, okay. So we had the setup statement, and then we would just be like, as you start tapping, you would start tapping on the top of the head, just as you're
So this is
speaking.
going into C, right? Into
See the clearing.
clearing.
Yeah. So after you had your setup statement, you're saying, you're angry about this or whatever. And then you would start tapping on the top of your head and you could just keep it in short statements like, I can't believe he said that. And then you would move to the eyebrow point, which is that inner port of the eyebrow. And you could literally just say the same thing over and over again. I can't believe he said
Mhm.
that. And you could say it out loud. I'm so angry. Move over to the eyebrow point. I mean, the
And you
side of the
said like
eye.
each each spot is like 5, 7
Yeah.
somewhere
And it's real
taps,
light
just
tapping. It doesn't have to, because it's
handful.
tapping, it's not punching.
It'd be very different.
It's very gentle. And so it'd be like, I can't believe you said that. And then you'd move side of the eye. Makes me so angry. Under the eye. I can't believe he said that. Under the nose. Why did he say that? Under the mouth, the chin point. So angry. And then collarbone. Can't believe he said that. And if you can at this point just stop, take a deep breath, and then see if that intensity is still there. And if it
Mhm.
is, you can go through another round real quick and then just go through another round saying that and see if the intensity comes down. Now, the idea here is that in the moment, something like this, you're just trying to bring that intensity level down so that one, it just doesn't bother you that much anymore. And
Mhm.
two, it really does help. Like in this situation, you're angry about something or it's relational to someone else. It,
Mhm.
it really does help clear the tension to allow you to maybe look at it a different way, be able to approach it differently, or just release it, let it go, and just forget
Mhm.
about it. And so, how you feeling?
Good.
How's it going? What
I don't
questions
know.
do you have?
I mean, I don't have questions. I just have my one experience with it.
Mm-hmm.
The one summer that I was the first mate with daddy on the
Mm-hmm.
boat,
Mm-hmm.
and I dreaded going to work every day
Oh.
because I don't like vomit. I really hate it. It's
Who likes
gross.
vomit?
It's disgusting. But daddy, he's unfazed by it. And so a lot of times people would come out on the boat, afternoon, ocean gets rougher, people would get sick, and like my whole afternoon I would just be stressed because I'd be like, is he gonna throw up? Is she gonna throw up? That guy doesn't look good. He's turning green. And so I'm like, I dreaded going to work every day because it was just so gross and I hated it. And I finally like broke down and I remember I was sitting on the couch with you and I was literally that's one of the times I've probably like most like just full on bawling. Like I was just so emotional about it. And you just led me through that pattern right there. And
Mm-hmm.
I feel like I did it like 5 or 6 times.
Mm-hmm.
And I think you were asking me questions about it, like, trying to get me to talk about it, and
Mm-hmm.
eventually, by the end of it, I was, like, it just I felt so much better, and, like, even looking back
Mm-hmm.
on the rest of my summer after that,
Mm-hmm.
it didn't bother me as much,
Hmm.
like, when people would get sick. I remember there was this one kid, it was a mom and her son had gone up, and as soon as that kid came back in and his feet touched the boat,
Mm-hmm.
he lost it all over
Yeah.
the place.
Ugh.
And then I remember looking at it and I almost, like, laughed and I was like, "That looks like cat food."
Jesus, Haley. Sorry for anybody who's like listening now while they're eating.
But it was like, looking back on it now, I'm like, it really didn't bother me as much after that.
Yeah. There is a lot of work with tapping and phobias, helping people work through phobias because again, it can before your fight or flight response can kick in, it can actually help rewire that part of your brain by using the actual way your brain functions, which is really cool. It's
Mhm.
it's working with what you get, basically. And I find, like I said, it helps me a lot in the moment. It's self-care, first aid, like that.
Mhm.
And
It's like,
um
stop the bleeding.
yes, I'm bleeding because, like I said, it helps me a lot in the middle of the night because whether it's hormonal or whatever situational things going on in your life, it's so weird. I wake up a lot at night, but I can almost tell what time it is by the way what my mind wants to kick into, and it's usually
Mm.
it's usually if I wake up around 3 or 4 in the morning, I have these
The
panic
witching
thoughts.
hour. It's
I
the
can
witching
get
hour.
these like spiraling, like, oh my God, your life is falling apart. What are you doing? And
That's
seriously.
fun.
And then if I can get back to sleep, I can wake up an hour or so later and it doesn't even matter what was going on. So that's how I know it's like something that is really physiological, hormonal thing happening.
Mhm.
But in the
Mhm.
moment, it's also like real, you know?
Yeah.
And so if you are particularly stressed, I would do that in the middle of the night. And a lot of times it doesn't in the moment actually feel like it's working because you're like, I'm still kind
Mhm.
of upset, but then you fall asleep so much easier. And I think even using a round of tapping, like if you're having difficulty, I know you've expressed interest in maybe wanting to have a meditation practice, but your mind just won't stop, you know?
Mhm.
Or going to sleep at night, something's bothering you before you go to sleep, doing a round of tapping of like, I just want to sleep. I just want to rest, you know, blah, blah, blah. But I have done tapping before. I try to have a meditation practice because sometimes,
Mhm.
especially in the morning, my mind is way more active. Like it wants to go do stuff and work and do all these things, but need to clear some space. So I might not always do the setup statement, but I will just sometimes you just want to calm yourself down. Just get into that tapping through the points, top of the head, eyebrow, side of the eye, under the nose, chin, collarbone, and just be like, all these racing thoughts. My mind is so busy. All these
Mhm.
racing thoughts, you know, just kind of repeating statements that is addressing what you're experiencing and doing a round or two of tapping, taking a deep breath, and then just seeing if it just helps calm you down, which it
Mhm.
quite often does. I'd say pretty much always does. But anyway, so it's just a really great tool to help kick in that parasympathetic response and really help your, you know, like we said, the decision making
Mhm.
part of your brain more active, engaged, because that's where this is really helpful when we're releasing beliefs because it opens your mind to more possibilities. Because a lot of people have experienced when you're using this, you've been really stuck in a certain pattern your whole life or for a while, and you just
Mhm.
don't know how to get out of it. And it seems like a silly thing to do to just tap and talk about it. But after that, people will find that wow, it's easier to make decisions, to have more creative ideas, to do all these things because you're literally freeing yourself up from all that unwasted uh,
Wasted.
wasted energy, effort, whatever you want to call it. So
Poorly used energy.
poorly used. Yeah. But this has been something that using this, even like I said, part of me wants to, in this moment, just tell you everything you could ever possibly want to know and treat it like a training for EFT. But I know that's not necessary. You just need to know the basic framework. And this will be
Mhm.
in video format. If you're listening to the podcast, I am going to also have this podcast in video on YouTube.
On the YouTube.
I don't have all of them. Oh my God. This is, you know, we're talking 50 episodes here. And our first like
Me too.
25 to 30 episodes weren't even video. So we weren't, you know, focusing on video. We were just doing the audio
Mhm.
as we got used to it. But now I'm like, I do have all these video versions of the podcast that need to be uploaded. And
You can see our lovely faces.
yeah, that takes some time to upload to YouTube. Even we but I will make this one a priority so that as it released as audio podcast, it
Mhm.
will also be on YouTube so you can actually see us
Yep.
tapping through the points if you're confused about that. And
Mhm.
yeah, so that's the tapping. What other because as I said in a little sidebar Haley and I had, we didn't open it up to discussion here for everybody, but I started to get into some things about resistance and, you know, all his beliefs and everything, which I think will make a different episode.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
but I really wanted to just introduce the topic here to start because I've been wanting to do it a long time, and I really feel
Mhm.
that this is a life-changing tool as well, as far
Mhm.
as allowing yourself to help manage and regulate your emotions and
Yeah.
not get so um wrapped up in them and the stories that are
Mm.
created because we talk about emotions a lot in this podcast because of the defined and undefined solar plexus situation.
Mhm. Yes.
Yeah. And so it can help in either regard because you're emotionally undefined and it can, when you feel particularly emotionally charged as emotionally undefined person, in the moment, if you're not able to remove yourself from the situation that is occurring around you, the people that are around you, that's where, this self-soothing, just tapping on the side of your hand, because literally you can hold your hands in front of you, can just kind of like, nobody will notice. You could even just kind of drum
You
your
can like have it in
fingers.
your lap. You're just kind of like
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah. There's also
it's almost like fidgeting. You're just kind
yeah.
of
There's also these points of your fingernails, but that's a little more involved. You can kind of tap your fingers. But yeah, you could just have your hands in your lap. You do this. I find myself in traffic sometimes. You could just be like, I mean, when you think about it, these points that we pointed out, a lot of times are areas that we are naturally drawn to kind of like when we're upset, we're like, oh, you kind of put your hand on the side of your eye, or
I
you
find
see how you
myself all the time. I'm like,
yeah.
I'm putting my hand right above my eye. Like,
Mhm.
if I talk about something stressful, I'm like,
Yeah.
and I'm like rubbing right above my eye, and now I'm like, what the hell?
And that's yeah, and that is a pressure, point. You can like, you don't even have to, like, sit there and do this. You can just kinda rub it on the side of your eye, or because I have been in traffic many times, and whether I'm on my way to somewhere or something has upset me or somebody pissed me off or whatever, and you just kinda like, calm down. Calm down, and you just sit there and
Mhm.
calm yourself down easily. You can just do all these things. It's what I told Lakeland. You're just at work. If something's bothering you at work, just nobody has to know what you're doing. You just sit there and kind of, because nobody's really paying that much attention anyhow to you.
That was that's something I am always working on.
Everybody is. Everybody's always working on that.
'Cause I feel like everyone's always staring at me because I am the person that's always looking at the people around me and just
Hmm.
kind of paying attention to what they're doing because I
Hmm.
just am nosy and I just it's what I like to do. So then
Hmm.
I think everyone's doing it to me and I'm like, no one is. No one's actually looking at me.
Hmm. But really, I mean, I do that too, but also it's like we have this inborn, innate, like, comparison thing always going on. It's just, I think it's just part of our makeup as human beings to see if we're fitting in. It's like that survival type of instinct that we have to
Mhm.
that tribal thing that just like, do I fit in? Am I weird?
Yeah.
Am I going to be cast out? It's just like kind of this primal thing I think we do that is always comparing
Yeah, because I mean, it used to be if you didn't fit in with the herd or the tribe, like you were pretty screwed.
the herd.
You were probably gonna die.
They would cast you out. Yeah. So we have that fear, but that was what we'd always say in, or what you hear in your yoga class, and then when you teach it, you say the same thing. It's like, nobody is paying attention to you. Everybody's thinking the same thing, which is, "Oh my gosh, are they looking at me?" No, they're not.
No,
They're
they're
thinking the
not.
same thing you are. "Are they looking at me?" You're looking around, "Everybody's perfect, and I'm not." No, that's exactly what they're thinking as well. But, anyway, so I hope this was useful enough to get
Yeah,
people started and curious. And if you want to know more about it, certainly reach out to me. I have some resources, but anyways, yeah, so try it out. And this week, as you're moving throughout your week, if you find yourself in a heightened state, remember the ABCs: awareness, pay attention
balance.
to it. How are you feeling? What is bothering you? Rate it. How much is it bothering you?
Mhm,
Balance it, do your setup statement, get yourself calm enough to address it, and then clear
mhm,
it out by going through all those points and then revisit. You always revisit. Is it still, because your idea is, if you're really intensely feeling it and you're like, this is like an 8 or 9 out of 10 or a 12 out of 10,
mhm,
you just keep revisiting it every round or two of tapping, see if it's reducing ideas to get it down to a 2 or 3 or nothing at all. And it
mhm.
really is incredible that a lot of times you may even question why it was you're upset in the first part. And that's in the first place. First place. Because when you're a practitioner and you're working with people, they said that's why this part is so important, because you want people to name the problem, and you even, sometimes write it down and rate it, because sometimes people can get to such a calm space about it. They don't even realize what the problem was in the first place. Like, it just
Mhm.
rewrites itself. And it's truly, Truly amazing. Highly suggest using it. So there we go. Okay. So that's it for today, Haley.
Yeah, that was
Yeah.
good. Always good. I always think they're good.
Oh, well, you're sweet. Always learning something. All right. Well, everybody out there listening again, we appreciate you. Have a great day, and we'll be catching you in the next episode. So bye for now, Haley.
Bye.
You made it all the way to the end of today's episode, so you must have liked what you heard. If you did, make sure you subscribe so you never miss an episode, and perhaps leave us a good review. And if you know someone who wants to dig into all things human design with us, make sure you share the Human Design Hive podcast with them. We'd really appreciate it. Thanks for listening.